It's another edition of Time About the Movies. Today we're taking a look at the movies of November 12th, 2004, and we've got 6 of them, so we have a lot of films to get to, a lot of notable films, and none more notable than the first movie that we have here. Robert Zemeckis and Tom Hanks reuniting again for the third time after Forrest Gump and Castaway, with, maybe not quite as good as Forrest Gump and Castaway, but still a pretty good movie. This is the classic Christmas favorite, The Polar Express. So the Polar Express, as you can tell from the trailer there, gives you kind of an idea of what the feel of the movie is. But the story is about a young boy who sees a mysterious train bound for the North Pole stop outside of his window and is invited aboard by its conductor, played by Tom Hanks. He joins other children as they embark on a journey to visit Santa Claus, who's preparing for Christmas, and he's also trying to figure out whether or not he still believes in Santa Claus or not. And this is based off of a book by Chris Van Allsburg, who gave us Jumanji, and another movie that definitely went on to become a classic among most people, especially around the holiday season. But at the time, it was actually a film that was very, very polarizing at the time. I mean, it didn't get the best reviews from most critics, and it actually didn't do very well at the box office at first. But then again, when you have a season that includes you being sandwiched in front of behind the Incredibles, and then with the SpongeBob movie coming out the next week, yeah, chances are your expectations of making a whole lot of money wasn't really going to help you in the long run, unless you were a Christmas movie. And this is definitely a Christmas film. And while the box office wasn't strong at first, the film did eventually find an audience over time, especially during that holiday season. I think it opened to like $23 million domestically when it first came out, but then it eventually went on to gross over $286 million worldwide, with about $160 million of that coming from here in the U.S., so it did eventually find its audience over time, and if it didn't find it then, it was certainly going to find its audience through television. I mean, not even but 2 years after it came out, it was already being seen on TV a lot. ABC, I think, had it at first, but now you see it every year on Freeform and then on AMC. But it's a great movie. It's a really visually stunning movie to look at. It's easily the best of the motion capture Robert Zemeckis movies. This is the first one where he was trying out the motion capture concept that he would use for many of his films going forward, with stuff like Beowulf, A Christmas Carol, which I really like A Christmas Carol, and I do like Beowulf. But then he kind of went overboard with Mars Needs Moms, and that was kind of the end of that run for him. But this is definitely one of the best earlier attempts of it to show what motion capture can really do, and I think he does a pretty good job with it. I think the feeling of Christmas is definitely all throughout the course of the movie. You do get behind the kid in general, the young kid in this movie, who doesn't have a name in particular, which I do kind of like that. They don't really give you the names of these kids in particular, except for one of them, which is named Billy, who's played by the kid who's also Roo from the Winnie the Pooh movies. I can't remember his name though, but Jimmy Bennett. I'm seeing it right here, but you've got characters like Hero Boy, who's also... It's weird because Josh Hutcherson does the motion capture work, but it's Daryl Sabara from Spy Kids doing the voice for him, and it's Tom Hanks who's doing like the adult voice and the motion capture work. And he does it for like several different people, including the father, the Ebenezer Scrooge puppet, the conductor, the hobo, Santa Claus. You also have a person named Hero Girl and a person named Know-It-All. Like, there are very few people in this movie that actually have names to them in general, and it's kind of a little bit of a distraction, but it doesn't really matter in the long run, because the movie is giving you a very visual feel to it that really does feel impressive overall, especially if you see this on the big screen. Like, this was one of those movies that benefited from having IMAX 3D at the time, using it to really show off these incredible sequences of animation in general. Like, when they're... Like, one of the best scenes in the movie is when the conductor, the boy, and the girl, they're on the front of the train, and they're about to go on this roller coaster aspect of the train, where it just starts off like going up a hill, and then as soon as it goes down, they go sliding down here, and it goes like... It feels like you're on a roller coaster, and they end up sliding through an icy road, an icy waterway that eventually will break because one of the pins from the brakes accidentally falls off and hits the thing, and it just leads into some really cool animation in general. It's a really cool visual style, a visual style that's very impressive all throughout the course of the film, and you get a lot of that all over the film as well. And it does have some good heartfelt moments, like the moment when he realizes, okay, like he has to say, "I believe." Like the moment when he is when all the other kids see Santa Claus and he's the only one that can't see it, and one of the bells off of the reindeer fall off, and, you know, he says, I believe, and, like, he rings the bell, and it's just like moments like that can be fun. It can get a little bit too emotionally manipulative at times. There are moments where you can feel like they're trying to force this to become the next big Christmas classic, and yeah, it can be very distracting at times. I mean, Elf, I think, worked as eventually became a Christmas classic because, you know, movies like Elf, movies like Christmas Vacation, movies like A Christmas Story, and movies like Home Alone, they weren't really trying to force the Christmas classic onto you. They just wanted to make you feel like it was a holiday season, and it worked in those movies in particular, and you didn't really feel them forcing the holiday on you. This one definitely forces it on you, and it doesn't really ruin the ebb and flow of the film in general, but it's definitely a lot more noticeable in this particular movie. Plus, a lot of it just is really good. I love the music by Alan Silvestri. I mean, he's one of my favorite composers of all time. I mean, the song by Josh Groban, Believe, is still one of my favorite songs I like to listen to every holiday season. Like, every holiday season when this is on, I have to watch it at least once, so it still has that lasting impact with me. It still feels like a movie that I'm glad I got to see when I saw it for the first time in theaters. And it's a movie that has grown over time with me. It's a film that has become one of my favorite movies to watch every holiday, and it's just a terrific, fun film in general. A lot of times, but not enough for me to say it's a bad film by any means. It's still a really good Christmas movie. I really love it a lot. I can't recommend this one enough. The Polar Express. Definitely check it out this holiday season if you haven't seen it. So, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to some of the lesser movies that came out this weekend, because let's be honest, The Polar Express was the biggest of the wider releases. We'll get to some of the more notable limited releases coming up later on in the show, but let's start with one of the few other wide releases that didn't leave much of a lasting impact, including Brett Ratner's After the Sunset. This is a movie that stars Pierce Brosnan as a master thief caught in a pursuit with an FBI agent played by Woody Harrelson. And Pierce Brosnan pulls off this heist, and then almost 7 years later, he decides to go with his girlfriend, played by Salma Hayek, and retire in the Caribbean. And Woody Harrelson doesn't buy the fact that he's just retiring from the law. From the master thievery. He thinks this is part of a master plan to steal this Napoleon diamond. And the trailer pretty much gives you everything you need to know here. And if you've seen movies like this, you know exactly where this movie is going to go. And because of that, the movie doesn't really work as well as I think they wanted it to. I mean, it's a good cast overall. Pierce Brosnan, Harrelson, Hayek, Don Cheadle. You got Naomi Harris in here as well. A good cast overall here. I do like seeing Brett Ratner do something very different that's outside of his norm, but this is definitely a film that feels more like what we see from Brett Ratner all the time, and it just doesn't really work as well as I think it should. I think a better script really needed to be placed into this movie, because you could pretty much predict everything that's going to happen from what happens on screen. It leaves no surprises whatsoever. It leaves no real shock with the twists and turns come into play, and it just doesn't feel like a film that really is worthy of the talent that's involved with it. I feel like a much better film is needed with the people involved in here, but unfortunately, this film sadly does not have that opportunity to really say that, unfortunately, and just kind of stumbles in the long run when it's all said and done. So yeah, overall, very disappointed with this film in general. I was actually kind of looking forward to it when it came out because of the people involved, because I did like Brett Ratner's work at the time, but this, not so much. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie we have here, and that is the latest installment of the Child's Play franchise, Seed of Chucky. Your first mistake was releasing this after Halloween, but then again, Child's Play 2, I guess, was a success before. It was after Halloween in 1990, but that's 14 years. That's 14 years ago, and this feels like the moment when the Child's Play franchise was sadly beginning to heading into the final run of its era. And in this movie, it's basically a follow-up to Bride of Chucky, and follows a young doll named Glenn, who is the son of Chucky and Tiffany, who resurrects his parents, causing chaos. And the chaos, it's about what you expect from a Child's Play movie in general. I mean, Brad Dourif and Jennifer Tilly are still having a ton of fun with this. Unfortunately, the rest of the movie in particular is really kind of lazy. Really doesn't really have enough of that fun, enough of the fun aspects that makes Chucky a ton of fun to watch. Like, this is one where it goes straight from this movie continues to delve into, like, it started off as like a central horror movie, but then eventually has evolved into this kind of hybrid horror comedy, which worked in Bride of Chucky's favor, but in this movie, not so much. It's a film that, like I said, when Brad Dourif and Jennifer Tilly are on screen in general, I think they work great off each other. I think they're great as these two characters. But the movie itself, the young kid is the kid in the doll they have, the kid they have, Glenn, who's played by Billy Boyd. He's not that memorable of a character. It just feels like kind of a character that's being thrown in there for no particular reason, and it just, I don't know. It just, from the story perspective, it doesn't really have that elements to make these movies, to make the movie as fun as it should be. But I mean, luckily they have done more with Chucky in the last couple of years with the Child's Play reboot they did in 2019, and then the USA show where they did with Chucky, which is actually, I've been watching a couple of episodes of it. It's actually pretty good for what it is. It's a show that's actually, that's a show that I think uses the horror comedy hybrid aspect much better than a movie like this in general. I haven't seen the direct-to-video movies, which I've heard are kind of like so-so either way, but this movie in particular, I don't know. I just didn't think it was up to par with some of the other movies in general. I think it's the lesser of the Child's Play movies in general, because even the bad ones like Child's Play 3 at least have some of the fun, it's so bad it's good type of aspects to it. This just feels like a film that's just kind of like, it's just kind of dull, man. And, you know, this is a film that really didn't, I feel like this is a film that just overstayed its welcome with the Child's Play franchise. But like I said, it did get better over time overall, starting with the 2019 reboot and then the Chucky TV series. But this was kind of like, everyone thought that Chucky was kind of dead at this point in terms of movies in general. But like I said, much after this movie came out, it did get better. It just took about 15 years to get to that point. But so yeah, not a big fan of seeing Chucky. So let's go ahead and move on to another sequel that is not quite as good as it should be. Bridget Jones is back in The Edge of Reason. This is a typical comedy sequel, and not a good comedy sequel. Like, even the British know that hey, we can make great comedies, but we're not too far away from making bad comedy sequels like we are in the U.S. But yeah, this is a story that takes place 4 weeks after the first movie, and already Bridget Jones, played by Renee Zellweger, is being uncomfortable in her relationship with Mark Darcy, played by Colin Firth. Apart from discovering that he's a conservative voter, she has to deal with a new boss, strange contractor, and the worst vacation of her life. Oh, and Hugh Grant is also back as Darcy too, as the synopsis here doesn't want to bring that up, But yeah, this is definitely one of those movies that feels like the typical comedy sequel. It's definitely lesser than the original film, and it feels like it's going for too much more slapstick and silliness, and just a bad script in general. Like, it really does not give her a legitimate, Bridget Jones a legitimate reason to leave this guy that she was swooning over in the first movie. Yeah, it just didn't work. The jokes really in this are not that funny. Even the best scene, which was from the trailer, where you see Colin Firth and Hugh Grant is fighting each other in the water fountain. Like, that's a fun little scene in general, but it's a very quick scene too. But it's a very quick scene. It doesn't really give you a whole lot in general in the long run when it's all said and done. It just feels like the whole movie is just like, hey, the first movie was a success. We got to make a sequel right away. We don't care how good the script is. Just get a sequel out there. And unfortunately, this is what happens after that. But this is what happens because of that. It's just a movie that really wasn't as good as it should have been. And it's a shame, because I like the first Bridget Jones a lot. I haven't seen Bridget Jones's Baby, but I had never really had a keen interest in actually checking it out. But I'll eventually get to it once we get to that film about 12 years from now. But as of right now with Bridget Jones, The Edge of Reason, it's not a good movie. It's really a lackluster sequel in general. I felt like it was being made because the first movie was such a big hit, and it felt like they felt obligated to make a sequel. So yeah, that's Bridget Jones, The Edge of Reason. So let's get back to some good movies again. Let's start with Johnny Depp in Mark Forster's Finding Neverland. So in Finding Neverland, you have Johnny Depp playing playwright J.M. Barrie and his relationship with a family who inspired him to create Peter Pan, with Kate Winslet, Julie Christie. You also have Radha Mitchell, Dustin Hoffman, and the introduction of Freddie Highmore, who would later be with Johnny Depp again in the summer blockbuster Charlie and the Chocolate Factory in 2005. This is directed by Mark Forster, who gave us such great movies as Stranger Than Fiction, and the writer of this is David McGee, who gave us The Life of Pi, and a lot of good talent overall in this movie. A lot of great filmmakers in general. Christopher Robin, Mark Forster also directed World War Z. So he's made a lot of really good movies in general. This is probably one of his best films overall. Johnny Depp, I think, is fantastic in the movie, giving a really solid performance as J.M. Barrie. Freddie Highmore is very good, giving a great young performance as the boy that eventually aspires Peter Pan. You also got Kate Winslet, Dustin Hoffman, Julie Christie, Rhoda Mitchell's also in here as well. Terrific cast. A really good story in general of how Peter Pan came to be, pretty much. This is kind of like the equivalent of that 90s TV movie, The Dreamer of Oz, where, John Ritter plays L. Frank Baum, who got inspiration to write the story of The Wizard of Oz. It was like a TV movie for NBC. It feels like that type of movie with this film, except done on a grander scale with a bigger budget and much bigger names attached to it. And, done very well. I think it's a very solid film, visually pleasing to look at, shows a lot of the potential of its writer and director, who will later go on to give us more great movies down the road. It's a terrific film. I can't recommend this one enough, Finding Neverland. So with that said, let us move on to the last movie we have here, which is Kinsey. TMI. This is Kinsey, which is basically a story about the life of Alfred Charles Kinsey, played by Liam Neeson, who was a pioneer in the area of sexology. His 1948 publication, Sexual Behavior in the Human Male, the first of the Kinsey Reports, was one of the first reported works that tried to scientifically address and investigate sexual behavior in humans. You also have a cast that includes Laura Linney, Chris O'Donnell, Peter Skarsgård, Timothy Hutton, John Lithgow, Tim Curry, Oliver Platt. You can even see a little bit of John Krasinski in there, pre-Office fame. You also have Dylan Baker, a great character actor in general. Written and directed by Bill Condit, who would give us stuff like Dreamgirls, and then later down the road, Beauty and the Beast. Overall, a good film in general. An overall really enjoyable film. It's Liam Neeson, man. Like, Liam Neeson usually... This is back when Liam Neeson actually gave a shit about his career and wasn't just taking lackluster action movies for his Briarcliff Entertainment Company, which none of them, I think, have ever been really good. They've just been kind of out... They just get released out of nowhere, and nobody really ever goes to see them, and it feels like Liam Neeson's kind of wasting his talents away. But this is back when he was really putting his all into movies like this. Like, he really makes this work very well. I thought this was sort of related to the Masters of Sex show that was on Showtime with I can't remember his name. I just looked at it. I think Michael. It's not Michael Kelly. It's Michael something. I don't want to have to look, but I think I'm going to have to. Michael Sheen and Lizzie Kaplan, but that's a different person altogether, and actually a different decade compared to this movie, and compared to when Kinsey did his first publication. But yeah, it's a very entertaining movie with a lot of good performances all around, and not much more to say about it. I think it's a very good film. Definitely one of Liam Neeson's stronger, more underrated performances in general. A very good film. I'd highly recommend checking it out. And so with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. And the next time we meet, we get to the weekend of November 19th with two big movies opening up, including Nicolas Cage as some might say, a watered-down version of Indiana Jones and National Treasure, and the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, the movie that I think everybody thought was going to beat Nicolas Cage, but not so much. But does that mean it's the better movie? We'll have to wait and see tomorrow. But until then, though, thank you so much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the place on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. What was I doing with my finger there? There we go, right down there. If you like it, hit the like and subscribe button. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Until then, take care.